Years ago, I got a job working for a group of investors, mainly Australian and US-based investors, who owned a large portfolio of properties based in Australia and the USA. I mainly was looking after their Australian properties based around Sydney and surrounding areas. Most of the properties consisted of commercial, industrial, office, retail, and accommodation type of properties. The first few years basically concentrated on getting the properties up to scratch. There was basically rundown for many years. There was problems with lifts, air conditioning, water problems, etc. So basically patching them up, sorting them all out, and making sure they're all to scratch in that respect, and obviously ensuring the highest possible occupancy. Then looking at situations where we could the highest and best use, rebranding properties, getting different types of clientele, high revenue. At the same time, the local council looking after the main area we had the properties mainly around the Sydney CBD fringe area was cracking down on non-compliance with fire orders. The fire orders were being upgraded everywhere because there were serious fires other places, and we were hit with a few fire orders and obviously cost a lot of money. At one particular property I was looking after was an industrial type building, mainly rag trade, which was hit a very high fire order, which basically to bring up the scratch, not improving the property, just to comply with fire orders, it was going to cost over $1 million, and the property at the time about almost a third of the value of the property. We're in a situation where we couldn't really afford to redo the work, and we're looking at possibly selling it down the track. Part of the process was I looked at how we can repackage it to sell at the highest possible price. And what I did is that I got a development approval converting the industrial building to an apartment property with retail on the ground floor. So I made sure that the leases were about to expire, wasn't giving long leases. I made sure the leases were congruent or similar times, so we had a cut-off time to where we could actually sell the property as a vacant possession with a development approval for apartments, or this possibility we might have done it ourselves. I was in charge of all the leases. Problems, obviously the directors have final say, but very rarely will they go against my recommendations. And I believed I knew all the leases, had it under control. Anyway, it got the situation where we decided to put the property on the market, and we decided to give notice to all the tenants to vacate as vacant possession. Everything was going pretty fine until one of the tenants decided to question their lease. I remember telling me, "We've got a lease here." I said, "I don't think so. I checked that lease expired." So he said, "I organised this lease a few years ago with John, who was one of the directors." It was unusual because the directors never got involved with the actual negotiation of leases, and if they did, they would always tell me. Anyway, I went up to John, and I said to him, "Did you renew a lease for this person?" Because this person was a rag trader, and what happened, they knew each other very well. They were friends, and they were growing. And as they grew, we wanted more space, and they wanted an extra, 100, 200 square feet or 300 square feet. They go, "Yeah, no problem. I'll give it an extra whatever per year." And he claims, "Yeah, John negotiated a lease for this section here. I've got a lease here for a while." So what I did, I went back to John, the director, and I asked him, "Did you give this person a lease, a new lease?" He said, "No, I didn't." "Are you sure?" "Yeah, no, I didn't." Anyway, I went back to the tenant. I said to him, "Look, I've just spoken to John. He didn't give you a lease." "Yes, he did. We shook hands on it." Okay, I went back to John again. I said, "John, did you give this person a new lease? Did you shake hands on a deal?" He eventually admitted that he did. We now had a problem. Determine whether this handshake consisted of a legal lease or not. We didn't believe it was at the time. So what we did, what happened at the time, this tenant was adamant there was a lease in place and decided to put a caveat on the property, which meant the property could not be sold because he had equitable interest in the property as a tenant, which obviously stopped us from selling the property because it could not sell because the caveat had to be cleared beforehand. What we decided to do is we talked to John and our directors, and we had to seek legal advice. One of the solicitors we use is one of the top legal companies in the country. So we organised a meeting with them. We told them the situation. There's no written lease. There was a handshake agreement. There's a cabin on the property. We want to sell it. We need to do all this work. It's a big problem. We needed to sort it out now. We spoke to the directors of this company, this solicitors, lawyers, and they said to us, this is a tight situation. We're not sure how it would go in a court situation. And we decided to take it to the Land Environment Court. We started proceedings, and the directors decided that at early stage that they didn't want to proceed in the Land Environment Court. They wanted to work something else out. We had no real answers. We were a bit stuck. No one we knew could give us legal advice. We didn't know whether we could sell the property or could not sell the property. One Monday morning, John walks into my office with a scrap piece of paper, a name and a phone number on there. I said to him, who's this person? He said, he's a solicitor. He claims he can help us. Give him a call. I did some research on this person. This person was one of the top QCs in the country, and he had a long waiting list of weeks to go and see him. Anyway, the phone number, I called his office, called him Mr. Smith, and I said, look, my name is Tastzidis, and I work for John and the family, and I asked if I'd give Mr. Smith a call to make an appointment to see him. I'm just wondering whether his time's available next few weeks I could see him. And anyway, his assistant talked to him, had a conversation, told him who I was, how I got his name, and organised a meeting for the following day. I said, tomorrow? I said, fine, I'll come and see you tomorrow. Anyway, I walked in his office, told him the whole situation, how there was a handshake and agreement, and when the negotiations were happening between John and this particular tenant, the term was mentioned, and John, being a good friend, said, forever, as inverted commas. Anyway, Mr. Jones said, you've got a problem. You've got to negotiate. You've got what's termed as an Estoppel lease, which it can be legally binding, and most likely is legally binding, and you've got to negotiate. Went back to the office, spoke to John, that situation. What can we negotiate? This company, this tenant, was a manufacturing company, had a special requirement. Obviously, they had a lot of machinery, power upgrades, that sort of thing. We ended up negotiating, moving them to a similar sized area, another building, fitting out the whole property to cater for the machinery, and also give them 2 years free rent. Eventually, then they agreed, and they removed the cabin so we could sell the property. It was a very costly exercise. Now, obviously, check with your lawyers in this situation to ensure whether you have got a Estoppel or a legally binding lease, but it's always recommended that you seek legal advice. A lesson was learnt there. This cost a lot of money, very expensive mistake of the directors because it wasn't done properly, and it could have stopped the selling of the property. The good side of it is that they eventually sold the property for a record price in the area to a developer. But it was a long process, and we learned a lesson. I'd like to hear your comments. Have you had situations like this with your properties? This is Tastzidis from CST Properties, and subscribe to this channel.